trying to sort of replicate, but also improve upon a much earlier design that I made years ago, where I have this sort of machine that starts with a cobblestone generator, but then uses flying machines, advanced flying machines for that matter, to build giant plates of stone in a direction, so like a floor builder or a road builder. Only this time, not only am I planning on having it be more of a checkerboard pattern with this more advanced mixed generator, but I also intend on having the actual building be more advanced, because the last one not only was slow, but also somewhat unreliable. But beyond just that, here, as you can see, I've been working on different memory types, all made of D flip-flops and all meant to be registers. So over here, this is the earliest design that I ever used. It's a design I borrowed from someone else because I just so happened to be watching their content, and this just so happened to be the best design I knew about. And so one of these is 6 units by 3 units by 2 units, and so it can stack horizontally this way pretty easily, vertically semi-easily, but it's also kind of thick, which that thickness is common across almost every memory model you're going to find. You can get out of here now, actually. I'm sick of listening to you. But as I was saying, a full 4-bit register of these would be, in volume, 120 blocks. 120 cubic meters, actually, would also be another correct measurement. But cross-sectionally, wait, I forgot exactly how I measured these. I think, oh yeah, this is 8, meaning that in a register it would be 8 units wide. For some reason, I was thinking that it was going to be the measurement of a single one of these, a single datum. So a full register, cross-sectional, would be 240 square meters. So that would affect the tiling of the mechanism. It's not counting depth, but the second metric is counting depth, which is why it's cubic instead of square. Which over here, my first try at improving the design was to use, first of all, this this sort of, they call it quasi-connectivity, glitch, or a sort of bug, or maybe it's not a bug, maybe it's intended, in order to have pistons that remember their state. See, which worked pretty well, only I think this is about the exact same size as those were, maybe slightly more compact, and so cross-sectional, it's 21 for the whole register, as opposed to 24, so that's a small improvement. But the height is the same, and also the depth. It's actually a little bit deeper than the other one, so volume is worse, but area is better, which is actually an improvement for what I'm trying to do. And so, taking a look, an actual demonstration to make this more tangible for the discerning viewer. Over here, my next step was trying to compact it cross-sectionally into a 4x4 cross-section, but I think this is slightly deeper, or maybe the same deepness. It looks like the same deepness. Let's check the statistics. The depth is 16, apparently, which over here Actually, no, not 16, that's 5. And over here, that's 6, so 1 block shallower, actually. So in all cases, this is better except for the height. And 4 times 4 is 16, obviously. And so this was an objectively better design for my purposes. Yeah, and it works almost exactly the same as well. The only downside is the busing. The busing is more difficult to work with here. And then the next step after that is to sort of squish it vertically to make it even more compact cross-sectionally. And so this has a height of 3 instead of 4, which is already a huge improvement. Small differences are actually a big difference when you're talking about numbers that are already small. And so it went from 16 to 12, which is actually, I think, a bigger difference than between 21 to 16. By ratio, I don't mean by absolute. And so that times the 5 depth gives the 60 volume, which by volume this is already even more compact than the last one, which the last one was already a pretty big leap from this mammoth here. And the final step I made was to compress it even further vertically to 2x4, 2x4, which gives it a cross-section of 8 tiles, not counting the requisite floor tile, of course, which would be this layer right here, which there's already going to be, you see. So, actually, per tile, I think that would be 3, not 4, but that would mean that this is 4, not 5, and this is 5, not 6, which, yeah. But in any case, this is better than the last one, which is better than the one before it. And as you can see, it is also fully functioning, which is another important thing to demonstrate. And I think this one is actually even faster than the last ones. Actually, I think the slowest update possible is 4 ticks. So this is the worst possible case scenario. Watch this. Yeah, which isn't even that bad. You see, this is just to update the pistons here, which only requires something nearby the piston to change, which observers are basically perfect for, I think. And so, if the first piston is updated by this observer and all of the rest of the pistons in the chain are also not in the correct state, they all update at once. So let me demonstrate that as a sort of weird thing going on here. But then, actually, I should show this. If there are islands, you can see that they don't all update at the same time. Yeah, like that. And so you can get some minor inconsistencies with this if you don't strain out that sort of unpredictable latency. So always sample after this longest possible update, which I think is actually slower than this big one, but it's worth it for the compactness. And so stacking these, I think this would be more than 3 or 4 times as efficient as the RAM that I used in my first processor designs in Redstone. And so this could make, theoretically, processors that are 4 times more compact. So imagine instead of the entire visible area being a processor, it's just that quadrant over there, which is a huge improvement. Not only can you fit more into a smaller space, but that leaves room to fit even more in, and so you can have even more memory or even more processing power. but of course that's not counting vertical. Building vertical is actually a really good idea in processors, because then everything is closer together. Think about it, a sphere is a lot more compact than a piece of paper. Anyway, that's actually everything I've been working on recently. You can see over there is everything before.
5 minutes later.
Also, as a side segment, I'm going to show how to make really good looking archways, and it's actually really simple. There's actually an algorithm for it. So first you start by making a 4 high pillar, and then you go off 1 and make that 3 high, and off again, and 2, and decrement each time until you come to this point where you see that the slope of the line is constantly changing by 1 in each vertical slice. It's just linear algebra, which isn't as bad as it sounds. And then you invert the process on the other side, going 1 more down each time until you hit the bottom. And look at that. Doesn't that look fantastic? And then, of course, you can make different scales, so you could start with 3 instead of 4, and that will make a smaller arch for a smaller project. And then look at that. It's actually the same arch, but with the bottom chopped off. If you want a differently sized arch, you actually need to alter the equation a little bit, so that instead of altering the slope every 1 tile you move forward, alter it every 2 tiles. So you do the same length twice in a row, and then you do the next length twice in a row. And yeah, look at that. Up here it gets kind of weird, because then you're getting into the territory of how is this supposed to work? But then you can actually just do whatever you want if you really want to. I think up here it's supposed to go diagonal for a really long time. Actually, that looks correct. Yeah. This is just improvised. You can construct a really elegant algorithm for making them perfect if you really wanted to. But you can see that archway is scaled up from the other one, or the other ones, I should say. No, actually, this is all one arch. And if you really wanted to, you could do parabolic arches, which also have special properties, which is really just using exponentials, or I think, what's the official terminology for that? Exponent? Never mind all of that. It's actually half of the equation you need in order to construct an actual circle, which is a squared plus b squared equals 1. You just plug in a, and it gives you b. Of course, that requires square rooting. But fortunately, parabola does not require square rooting. It's just, I think, y equals x squared, which is simple. It's probably one of the most simple ones you can have. Which actually, let's test doing that right now. So 3 squared, that's 9. And then 2 squared, that's 4. And then 1 squared is just 1. And then 0 squared is 0. And you can see this is building a much more elongated archway, because parabolas are much more sharply curved than these curvatures of constant change in slope. But of course, you can actually do the same weird scaling with this one as you can do with those. And so instead of sampling at whole numbers, you can sample at fractional numbers like 1, and then a 1 1/4, and then 1 1/2, or 1 2/4, and then 2. And so then that can scale it horizontally, but keep it the same vertical aspect ratio. And that's archways simplified for the average person. There's also a lot of other ways to do them, but those are for later if you really want to. This is just the simple things.